The rain tasted of iron. It slid down the black tiles of the Qin ancestral hall, gathered along the dragon-carved eaves, and fell in thin red streams around the kneeling man in the courtyard. Qin Wuye laughed at the rain. He laughed with his head tilted crookedly. He laughed while servants threw bowls of spoiled rice at his face. He laughed while the younger heirs stood beneath silk umbrellas and watched him crawl through the mud. For 18 years, everyone in the Qin family had called him mad. The eldest son who barked at dogs, the crippled fool who slept in pigsties, the disgrace who tore his own robes and smeared ash across his cheeks, the worthless lunatic who could not even hold a wooden sword without trembling. That was what they believed. That was what Qin Wuye had spent 18 years forcing them to believe. A rotten vegetable struck his temple. The courtyard erupted with laughter. His younger brother, Qin Jinhai, stepped forward in embroidered boots. He did not enter the mud. He would never dirty himself for a dog. "Brother," Jinhai said softly, "Father is offering you one final kindness." Wuye blinked. Then he scooped mud into his mouth. Several maids shrieked with disgust. Jinhai smiled. That smile had not changed. It was the same smile he had worn 18 years ago, when he had stood behind a half-open door and watched their mother pour poison into Wuye's medicine. Wuye had been 6 then, old enough to understand the whispers, too young to resist. The poison had not killed him. It had burned through his meridians instead. His body had convulsed for 7 days. When he woke, he heard his father speaking outside the chamber. "The Sword Immortal inheritance can only recognize one heir." His mother had answered without hesitation. "Then our second son must be the only heir." That night, Qin Wuye began to laugh. He laughed until blood ran from his nose. He laughed when physicians examined him. He laughed when his father struck him. He laughed when his mother cried false tears and called him her poor broken child. The family relaxed. The poisoned heir had become an idiot. The threat had vanished. They never realized the madness was a mask. They never realized that a 6-year-old child had buried his hatred so deeply that even the elders searching his soul found nothing but shattered thoughts. For 18 years, Qin Wuye ate leftovers. He endured beatings. He slept beside animals. He watched his inheritance pass into Qin Jinhai's hands. He watched his name disappear from the family records. He watched the mother who poisoned him praise heaven for blessing her with one brilliant son. He waited. Not because he was weak, because the Qin estate was a cage. 7 sword formations guarded the outer walls. 3 hidden elders watched the bloodline heirs. His father possessed a cultivation base capable of crushing him with a glance. Running too early meant death. Revealing sanity meant death. Showing talent meant death. So Wuye became filth. He became invisible. And invisible things were difficult to kill. Jinhai lifted a folded document. "The Imperial Sword Pavilion has sent its final summons. Every direct descendant must undergo the bloodline trial. Naturally, sending a madman would humiliate our family." Wuye slapped the mud with both hands. "Fish fly. Birds swim. Jinhai has a pig face." The servants laughed harder. Jinhai's eyes twitched, only for a moment. Then his smile returned. "Father has decided to remove you from the direct bloodline. You will be sent to the northern mines. There, even someone like you can be useful." The northern mines. A frozen pit where prisoners dug spirit iron until their fingers split. No one survived longer than a few winters. This was not exile. It was a quiet execution. Wuye's mother stood beneath the hall roof, wrapped in white fox fur. Madame Lua looked no older than she had a decade ago. Spiritual medicine had preserved her skin. It had not preserved her patience. "Why are you still speaking to him?" she asked. "Have the guards dragged him away?" Wuye looked at her. His expression remained vacant. Inside, something ancient opened its eyes. He had expected this day. He had planned for it. He had hidden dried food beneath the pigsty. He had memorized the patrol routes. He had stolen a map from his father's study and replaced it before dawn. He knew the mine convoy passed through the Dead Sword Valley. He knew the valley contained an abandoned shrine. He knew the Qin ancestors had forbidden anyone from approaching that shrine. And he knew the poison in his meridians had reacted every night to something buried beneath that valley. The family thought they were sending him to die. They were finally opening the cage. 2 guards entered the mud. One grabbed his hair. The other kicked the back of his knee. Wuye collapsed dramatically and began biting the air. "Do not touch me. The moon is pregnant. The moon will eat you." A guard cursed and struck his jaw. Blood filled Wuye's mouth. He tasted it slowly. Then he smiled. Not the wild grin of a madman, a small, cold, measured. Gone before anyone noticed, the convoy left before sunset. Wuye was chained inside an iron wagon with condemned thieves, failed cultivators, and slaves purchased from distant provinces. The guards tied a bell around his neck. Whenever he moved, it rang. They found this amusing. One guard rode beside the bars and tossed him chicken bones. "Dance, young master." Wuye raised both hands and swayed. The prisoners stared at him with hollow eyes. The guard laughed. Again, Wuye danced again. His bare feet scraped against the iron floor. The bell rang. The chicken bones rolled near his toes. He counted every guard by the rhythm of the horses. He measured the weight of the chains by the pressure on his wrists. He studied the driver's breathing. He smelled oil beneath the wagon. He heard a loose wheel pin knocking against the axle. By midnight, he knew exactly how the convoy would die. He simply did not know whether he would need to help it. 3 days later, the mountains rose around them. Black stone, dead trees, fog that moved against the wind. The soldiers stopped singing. The captain ordered every torch lit. The road narrowed into a scar between cliffs, Dead Sword Valley. Wuye leaned against the bars. The poison inside his meridians began to boil. Pain spread through his bones. It was worse than fire, worse than the first night his mother poisoned him. His vision blurred. A whisper entered his skull. At first it sounded like steel dragging across stone. Then it became a voice, not human, not gentle. "Why do you kneel?" Wuye's fingers tightened. The bell around his neck trembled. No one else reacted. The voice belonged to him alone. "Why do you hide?" The wagon rolled deeper into the fog. Shapes appeared along the cliffs, broken swords, thousands of them. Blades without hilts, hilts without blades, weapons rusted red by old blood. Wuye lowered his head. "Because the prey has not entered the trap." The voice fell silent. Then it laughed. The sound shattered something inside him. The poison blocking his meridians surged toward his heart. His back arched. Black veins spread across his neck. The prisoners recoiled. "The madman is dying," someone whispered. Outside, the horses screamed. A shadow dropped from the cliff. A guard vanished from his saddle. His body hit the road a breath later. No head. The convoy, enemy attack. Arrows fell from the fog. Horses tore free. The iron wagon lurched sideways. The loose wheel pins snapped. The wagon rolled. Metal screamed against rock. Prisoners were thrown into one another. The wagon struck the cliff and split open. Wuye's chain caught between two bars. His shoulder dislocated. A normal man would have screamed. He laughed. The familiar lunatic sound carried through the chaos. Bandits rushed from the fog wearing bone masks. Not ordinary bandits. Sword cultivators, exiles, killers hiding in forbidden land. The captain drew his blade and released a wave of blue light. 3 attackers died. Then an old man in a bone mask appeared behind him. One finger touched the captain's spine. The captain folded in half. His blood steamed on the cold road. The prisoners fled. They were cut down before reaching the trees. Wuye remained beside the broken wagon. His arm hung uselessly. His chains dragged through the mud. A bone-masked woman saw him. A survivor? A guard crawling nearby shouted, "He is the mad son of the Qin family. Take him hostage." The woman turned toward Wuye. Hope lit the dying guard's face. Then Wuye picked up a shard of iron. He walked to the guard. The bell rang. Twice, the guard stared up at him. "You fool." "Help." Wuye crouched. His vacant expression disappeared. The guard's hope froze. Wuye pushed the iron shard through his throat, slowly, deeply. The guard clawed at his wrist. Wuye watched until the movement stopped. The bone-masked woman raised her sword. "You are not mad, no." His voice was calm. It was the first sane word he had spoken before another person in 18 years. The woman lunged. Wuye stepped aside. Not fast, precise. Her sword passed beside his ribs. He wrapped his chain around her wrist, turned, pulled. Her balance broke. He drove his forehead into her nose. Bone cracked. Before she could recover, he took her sword. One cut. Her body fell. Wuye looked at the blade. Forged, damaged edge. Unbalanced grip. Enough. The old man who killed the captain watched from across the road. His mask was carved from a human skull. "Well," his voice was amused, "the Qin family's famous mad dog has teeth." Wuye pushed his dislocated shoulder against the wagon frame. A hard twist. A wet crack. The joint returned to place. His face did not change. The old man's amusement faded. "You hid your mind. You hid your killing intent. You even hid your breathing. For how long enough?" The old man vanished. Wuye lifted the sword. Steel met steel. The impact hurled him backward. His feet carved lines through the blood ran from his palms. The old man tilted his head. "You have no cultivation?" Wuye said nothing. The poison in his meridians roared. The voice returned. "Your body is a tomb. Your blood is a lock. Your hatred is the key." The broken swords embedded along the valley began to tremble. The old man stepped back. For the first time, fear entered his eyes. "What are you?" Wuye looked toward the deepest part of the fog. He could see it now. A stone gate hidden behind dead vines. A shrine. The place forbidden by the Qin ancestors. The place calling him since childhood. The old man attacked again. Wuye threw the stolen sword aside. The blade spun through the air and struck the chain binding his wrists. The chain snapped. The old man's sword reached his chest. A rusted weapon tore itself from the cliff. It flew across the road. It blocked the strike. Then another sword moved, then another. The entire valley awakened. Broken blades rose into the fog like a swarm of metal locusts. Every bandit froze. Every survivor fell to the ground. The air filled with screaming steel. The old man's skull mask cracked. No? Wuye walked forward. The poison inside his body poured from his skin as black smoke. The rusted swords absorbed it. His ruined meridians split open. Then something sharper replaced them. Lines of sword light carved through his flesh. His bones rang like forged metal. His heart beat once. The valley shook, it beat again. The stone gate opened. Beyond it stood a corpse seated on a throne of swords. The corpse wore black robes untouched by dust. A blade pierced its chest. Its empty eye sockets faced Wuye. The voice came from the corpse. Kneel. Every living person in the valley dropped under the pressure. Wuye remained standing. Blood flowed from his eyes. His knees trembled. His spine bent. He smiled. No, the corpse's aura intensified. The road shattered. Cliffs cracked. Men exploded into clouds of blood. The old bandit screamed as his bones broke one after another. Wuye took another step. You asked why I kneel. His feet sank into the earth. I kneel so fools stand closer. Another step. I hide so wolves expose their throats. Another. I endure so every debt grows heavy enough to crush the debtor. He reached the throne. The sword in the corpse's chest vibrated. The corpse lifted one hand. Wuye grabbed the blade. His skin burned away. He did not release it. The weapon pulled memories from his blood. His mother's poison. His father's indifference. His brother's smile. The servant's laughter. The mud. The chains. The northern mines. Every humiliation became fuel. Every wound became a whetstone. Every year of feigned madness became a strike of the hammer. The sword came free. The corpse collapsed into ash. A black mark appeared between Wuye's brows. The broken blades circling the valley lowered their points toward him. Not in threat, in worship. The old bandit crawled through the blood. Spare me, he gasped. Spare me. I did not know. I can serve you. I can lead you out. Wuye examined the black sword, its surface, not the fog, not the blood, not even his face. He stepped beside the old man. Does the Qin family know this shrine exists? The old man swallowed. Yes. They guard the secret. The inheritance rejects their bloodline. They send prisoners into the valley to feed the formation. Your convoy was an offering. Wuye paused. So that was the final kindness. His father had not merely sent him to the mines. The convoy had been arranged to die here. His family had delivered him as food to the inheritance they could not claim. Wuye began to laugh, quietly. The old man mistook it for mercy. He pressed his forehead into the mud. Thank you, Senior. Thank you. The old man's head rolled away. The valley became silent. Wuye stood among corpses and shattered wagons. His clothes were torn. His hair was wet with blood. His cultivation had only just awakened. His enemies still believed him chained on the road to the northern mines. His mother would be drinking tea. His father would be discussing the Imperial Sword Pavilion trial. His brother would be preparing to inherit everything. They would hear about the destroyed convoy soon. They would mourn the guards. They would not mourn him. They would call the mad dog unfortunate. They would burn an empty coffin. They would celebrate. Wuye wiped the blade against the dead captain's cloak. Then he looked south, toward the Qin estate, toward the family that had buried him alive for 18 years. He did not roar. He did not swear before heaven. He did not promise justice. Justice was a word used by weak men begging stronger men to feel shame. Qin Wuye felt no need for it. He only smiled, a thin smile, a patient smile. The smile of a man who had spent 18 years sharpening himself inside a sheep celebrating. He whispered. The swords of the valley rose behind him. I will return when the wine is warm. He took his first step out of the grave. And when I do, every path in the Qin estate will be covered in red. Qin Wuye did not return home. Not yet. A blade drawn too early only warned the throat. He remained in Dead Sword Valley until the blood dried black beneath the broken wagons. The bandits had carried more than weapons, spirit stones, maps, medicine, identity plaques, sealed letters, and bodies. Many bodies. Wuye searched them all. He stripped rings from severed fingers. He cut hidden pouches from inner robes. He opened boots, belts, sword sheaths, and even the mouths of the dead. The old bandit had carried a jade token marked with the crest of the Blood Crow Hall, a lesser sect, cruel, greedy, useful. The token granted access to hidden markets where stolen treasures changed hands without questions. Wuye placed it inside his robe. Then he sat before the shrine. The black sword rested across his knees. Its name appeared in his mind the moment his blood touched the hilt. Grave silence, a weapon forged from the final breath of a fallen immortal. It possessed no dazzling radiance, no sacred hum, no proud dragon spirit. It drank sound. It swallowed killing intent. It erased the presence of its wielder until even spiritual senses passed over him like wind over stone. A perfect sword for someone who had survived by becoming invisible. The inheritance inside it was worse and better. The endless burial sword scripture did not strengthen the body through meditation alone. It fed on endings, broken weapons, dying intent, abandoned oaths. Every sword that failed, every warrior who fell, every ambition buried before completion. All of it could become nourishment. Dead Sword Valley had been accumulating such nourishment for centuries. The Qin family had guarded the valley without understanding it. They had sent prisoners into the formation. They had fed the inheritance. They had prepared a feast for him. Wuye closed his eyes. Grave silence floated before his shh. The broken swords across the valley began to move, not quickly, not violently. One after another, they dragged themselves through the earth. Rust flaked from their edges. Ancient blood shook from their grooves. They circled Wuye and lowered their points. The scripture awakened. A pressure entered his flesh. It did not feel like spiritual energy. It felt burial soil, cold. Final. The first broken blade collapsed into ash. A strand of gray light entered his chest. His damaged meridian screamed. The poison placed inside him long ago resisted. It had fused with his body. It had become part of his blood. The scripture did not purge it. It devoured it. Black poison tore through his veins and rushed toward his heart. Gray's sword light met it. The collision split his skin. Blood sprayed across the shrine floor. Wuye remained seated. Another sword collapsed. Then another. Then dozens. The poison that had crippled him for 18 years became fuel. His shattered meridians reformed as narrow channels of sword intent. Each one cut through flesh as it opened. His body became a forge. His pain became the hammer. His hatred became the flame. The sun set. The moon rose. The moon vanished. Still Wuye did not move. By dawn, the valley floor had sunk beneath a carpet of ash. His body had changed. Not visibly. That would have been inconvenient. His shoulders remained lean. His skin remained pale. His face still carried the slight hollowness of a man raised on scraps. But beneath that appearance, his bones had hardened. His blood moved with the rhythm of drawn steel. His senses stretched across the valley. He could hear insects moving beneath stones. He could feel the weak points in the cliff. He could sense every remaining weapon as though it were a finger attached to his hand. When he opened his eyes, the nearest sword rose. He did not touch it. He only looked. The sword flashed across the valley. A boulder split without sound. The upper half slid away. The cut was smooth enough to reflect the sky. Wuye stared at it without satisfaction. Power was not victory. Power revealed at the wrong moment was merely a more expensive death. He returned grave silence to its sheath. Then he began preparing the lie. He found a corpse close to his height. The face had been destroyed by arrows. The limbs were burned. The body wore a prisoner's robe. Wuye placed the bell from his neck around its throat. He added a strip of cloth bearing the Qin family mark. Then he dragged it beneath the wagon and set the wreckage on fire. By the time the flames died, there would be enough truth to support the lie. The mad son had perished. A tragic end, a convenient end. Wuye left the valley wearing the clothes of a dead bandit. He moved north instead of south. For several days he traveled through mountain paths until he reached Black Reed Town. It was a place where respectable people pretended not to recognize murderers. Merchants sold spirit medicine beside cages of slaves. Cultivators drank beside bounty hunters. Children carried knives before they learned letters. Wuye entered with dust on his face and a cloth wrapped around grave silence. No one looked twice. That was how he preferred it. The hidden market opened beneath an abandoned bathhouse after midnight. A guard stopped him at the stone door. Wook showed the blood crow plaque. The guard inspected it. Name? Wook smiled foolishly. Crow 7. The guard frowned. There is no Crow 7. There is now. The man reached for his weapon. Wuye leaned closer. Grave silence remained sheathed. The guard heard nothing. No threat. No blade. No final breath. He only felt something cold touch his throat. Then his head tilted at an angle it should not have reached. Wuye caught the body before it fell. He placed it behind a curtain. Then he entered the market. Lanterns burned with green flame. Stalls crowded the underground hall. A woman sold preserved demon eyes. An old physician displayed jars of living organs. A smiling monk auctioned children with rare spiritual roots. Wuye walked past them all. He sold the bandits' weapons. He sold their medicine. He sold the identity plaques of men with enemies. He sold the convoy route. He sold the captain's armor. He sold everything except the sealed letters. The merchant handling the transaction looked at him with suspicion. This hall belongs to the Blood Crow Hall. It belonged to dead men. The merchant's eyes narrowed. Did you kill them? Wuye placed one hand on the counter. No, that answer was technically true. Some had died to arrows, some to the valley, some to one another. The merchant relaxed a mistake. Wuye noticed it. He remembered the man's face. Then he took his payment in unmarked spirit stones and left. The sealed letters were more valuable than everything else combined. One bore the Qin family crest. Wuye opened it in a rented room. The handwriting belonged to Qin Jinhai. The message was brief. The convoy carried the final blood sacrifice. Once the mad heir entered Dead Sword Valley, the formation would awaken. The Blood Crow Hall was ordered to seize whatever emerged. Half the treasure would go to the Qin family. The rest would be theirs. Wuye read it twice. Then he laughed. His brother had believed the inheritance would reveal itself after Wuye's death. They had not merely discarded him. They had used him as a key. Jinhai had arranged the ambush. The old bandit had expected treasure. The Qin family had expected the Blood Crow Hall to die taking it. Both sides had planned to betray the other. Greed stacked upon greed, a tower of blades. Wuye folded the letter and placed it inside his robe. Evidence was useful not for justice, for timing. The next morning, news reached Black Reed Town. The Qin convoy had been destroyed. The mad heir was presumed dead. The Blood Crow Hall denied involvement. The Qin family announced a reward for information. By afternoon, the reward doubled. By evening, a second rumor spread. The Imperial Sword Pavilion had moved its bloodline trial forward. The Qin family would present Qin Jinhai as its sole direct heir. Wuye drank tea inside a crowded inn while merchants praised his brilliant. A born sword lord. The Qin family will rise through him. They say he awakened the Golden Sun Sword Bone. Wuye lowered his cup. The Golden Sun Sword Bone had once belonged to him. Before the poison. Before the physician's cut into his spine. Before his mother claimed the procedure was meant to save his life. He had woken with a wound from neck to waist. Jinhai had awakened his rare constitution soon after. Wuye had understood. His family had not only stolen his inheritance, they had carved talent from his body and placed it inside his brother. The men at the next table continued speaking. The trial will take place in less than a month. The winner receives entry into the inner mountain and access to the sunken sword pool. Wuye's fingers paused. The sunken sword pool. A burial ground of failed weapons maintained by the Imperial Sword Pavilion. To others, it was a place of enlightenment. To the endless burial sword scripture, it was a banquet greater than Dead Sword Valley. He needed entry. Not as Qin Wuye. That name was dead. He would need a mask, a weak identity. Someone beneath notice. The answer arrived before sunset. A thin young man was thrown into the street outside the inn. His robe carried the mark of a small escort clan. 2 cultivators followed him out. Trash. One's spat. You dare enter the pavilion selection with a crippled sword vein? The young man tried to stand. A boot pressed him down. The second cultivator laughed. Your clan purchased a recommendation token. Give it to us. At least then it will not be wasted. The young man clenched his teeth. My father sold our ancestral land for that token. Then he is as stupid as you. The first man reached inside the young man's robe. Wuye watched from the inn doorway. He recognized desperation. More importantly, he recognized opportunity. The recommendation token could grant an outsider access to the preliminary trial. The young man possessed no power to protect it. The attackers possessed no patience. Wuye stepped into the street. His posture changed. His shoulders slumped. His eyes lost focus. His mouth opened, returned. He stumbled between them and began clapping. Pretty birds. Angry birds. Birds with no feathers. The cultivators turned. Get lost. Wuye pointed at the first man's waist. Your snake is sleeping. The cultivator looked down instinctively. Wuye's foot moved. A pebble shot from beneath his heel. It struck the man's ankle at the exact point where tendon met bone. The cultivator collapsed with a scream. The second reached for his sword. Wuye tripped forward. His shoulder struck the man's chest. A hidden pulse of burial sword intent entered the heart. The cultivator staggered. His face paled. Nothing appeared wrong. But a hair-thin crack spread through his core. He would not notice it tonight, perhaps not tomorrow. During his next cultivation session, his spiritual energy would surge into that crack. His core would rupture. Everyone would call it a tragic deviation. Wuye rolled through the dirt and laughed. Bird fell down. The attackers cursed, dragged themselves away, and promised revenge. Wuye ignored them. He crawled toward a discarded steamed bun. The young man picked it up first. He wiped away the dirt and offered it to him. Here. Wuye looked at the bun. Then at the recommendation token hidden inside the young man's robe. He could kill him. Take it. Simple. Wasteful. A living identity was more useful than a dead one. Wuye snatched the bun and bit into it. My name is Han Mu. Wuye chewed. Woo. Just woo, woo, woo. Han Mu laughed despite his wounds. You really are strange, Wuye laughed with him. Inside, he had already measured the young man's broken sword vein. It was not broken, it was sealed. Someone had placed a spiritual knot near his shoulder to prevent cultivation. Crude work. Intentional. A family struggle, perhaps. Another discarded heir. Another fool pushed toward death while relatives waited to divide his bones. Useful. Han Mu brought Wuye to a cheap lodging house. He shared his food. He explained the Imperial Sword Pavilion trial. He spoke of his father, his clan, his hope of becoming strong enough to protect them. Wuye listened while pretending to chase candle smoke. At midnight, Han Mu slept. Wuye placed 2 fingers on his sealed vein. Burial sword intent entered silently. The knot unraveled. Then Wuye planted a smaller seal of his own. Not to cripple him, to control the speed of his recovery. A miracle that happened too quickly attracted knives. A slow recovery attracted gratitude. By dawn, Han Mu could move his injured arm. He called it luck. Wuye called it investment. For the following days, he traveled beside Han Mu toward the Imperial Sword Pavilion. In public, he remained an idiot servant. He drooled. He spoke to trees. He carried luggage badly. Han Mu defended him whenever others mocked him. Wuye accepted every insult with a vacant grin. At night, he vanished. He hunted abandoned battlefields. He found graveyards where swords had been buried with their owners. He entered ruined shrines and stripped dying intent from shattered blades. The endless burial sword scripture devoured everything. His cultivation rose without thunder, without light, without witnesses, each breakthrough compressed inward. No aura escaped. No omen appeared. Drank it all. His strength multiplied. His control sharpened. His sword intent became thin enough to hide inside a breath. Wealth grew with it. He sold useless relics recovered from ruins. He purchased maps to ancient battle sites. He bought medicine for Han Mu with a fraction of the profit. The young man's gratitude deepened. So did his trust. Meanwhile, the treasure Qin Wuye had stolen began to open. The Golden Sun sword bone was never meant to be transplanted. It remembered its original owner. For years, the Qin family had suppressed its rejection with rare medicine. The upcoming bloodline trial would force Qin Wuye to awaken it fully. The moment he did, the bone would burn his meridians from within. The stronger he became, the more violently it would reject him. The family believed they had given him a divine sword. They had placed a cup of poison in his hands, and he was about to drink it before the entire world. Wuye stood on a mountain road and looked toward the distant peaks of the Imperial Sword Pavilion. Thousands of swords floated above the clouds. Han Mu stared in awe. Wuye stared at the burial ground hidden beneath them. A faint hunger stirred inside grave silence. He lowered his eyes, then he resumed his foolish smile. Ahead, Qin banners lined the entrance. Qin Wuye had arrived. The stolen bone inside him shone like a false sun. Crowds surrounded him. Elders praised him. Young disciples bowed. No one noticed the mad servant walking behind a crippled outsider. No one saw the Sword Immortal entering beneath their feet. Wuye rang the little bell he had purchased in town. The sound was bright, harmless, ridiculous. Qin Wuye glanced toward it. For one breath, the brothers looked at each other. Wuye crossed his eyes and waved. Qin Wuye's face twisted with disgust. Then he turned away him. Wuye's smile deepened. Good. The poison had reached the lips. All that remained was to watch him swallow. The Imperial Sword Pavilion floated above the clouds like a blade pressed against heaven. Its outer mountains were wrapped in white mist. Its inner peaks pierced the sky. Thousands of swords hung above the valleys, suspended by formations older than the kingdoms beneath them. Some shone like stars. Some slept in rusted silence. Some screamed whenever blood approached. Han Mu stood beneath the mountain gate and forgot to breathe. Wuye stood beside him and counted weapons. Every broken edge, every damaged spirit, every sword carrying an unfinished will. The endless burial sword scripture stirred inside him. Hungry, patient. The pavilion disciples gathered the candidates in a vast stone plaza. Clan heirs arrived in silk. Sect geniuses arrived on spirit beasts. Noble daughters stepped down from jeweled carriages while attendants scattered flowers beneath their feet. Han Mu wore a repaired robe. Wuye carried his bag. The bell at Wuye's waist rang whenever he walked. Several candidates laughed. Who brought a beggar? Not a beggar. Look at his eyes. He is an idiot. Perhaps the pavilion is accepting animals now. Han Mu lowered his head. Wuye lifted his face and smiled at the clouds. He had heard worse from people who were now ash. At the center of the plaza stood Qin Wuye. He wore white robes bordered in gold. A ceremonial sword hung at his waist. His stolen sword bone released waves of warm radiance, drawing admiring glances from every direction. Beside him stood Madame Luo, their mother. She had come to witness her favorite son rise. Her expression remained gentle, noble, pure, the same expression she had worn while holding down a poisoned child. Wuye watched her from across the crowd. No anger touched his face. Anger wasted energy, he preferred memory. Jinhai spoke with elders from the pavilion. His voice carried just enough humility to flatter them. I am still inexperienced. I only hope not to shame my family. The surrounding heirs praised him immediately. Brother Qin is too modest. Your golden son's sword bone has not appeared in generations. You will surely enter the inner mountain. Jinhai smiled. Then his gaze drifted toward Han Mu. Recognition sparked. Not of Han Mu, of the recommendation token hanging from his belt, a lesser clan token, purchased through sacrifice. Easy prey. Jinhai's companion, a narrow-eyed youth, approached them. He was Madame Luo's nephew, a cousin who had spent years kicking Wuye whenever the servants grew bored. Luosen looked Han Mu over. Then he looked at Wuye. His nose wrinkled. Candidates may bring one sword attendant, not a diseased fool. Han Mu stepped forward. He is under my protection. Luosen laughed. Your protection? A few candidates gathered. They smelled humiliation. They wanted entertainment. Han Mu's hands tightened. Wuye tugged at his sleeve. Hungry. Luosen reached out and slapped the bag from Wuye's shoulder. Food rolled across the stones. Wuye dropped to his knees and began gathering it. The crowd laughed. Luosen crushed a cake beneath his boot. Eat that. Han Mu's face turned red. Before he could speak, Wuye lowered his head and licked cream from the stone beside the boot. Disgust spread through the crowd. Luosen laughed hardest. He never noticed the thread of gray sword intent that entered through the sole of his shoe. It traveled upward, silent. It wrapped around the veins of his leg. Wuye ate another piece of dirt-covered cake. Inside, he tightened the thread. Han Mu pulled him away. Stop. Wuye hugged the ruined food to his chest. Mine. Luosen wiped his boot. Pathetic. Wuye looked up with empty eyes. Soon. What? Luosen cursed and walked away. The preliminary trial began at noon. A vast bronze door opened beneath the main peak. Beyond it waited the Sword Heart Road. Candidates had to climb a staircase under spiritual pressure. Those without resolve would collapse. Those without talent would be thrown down. Those carrying hidden injuries might die. Han Mu stared at the steps. Wuye touched his shoulder. The seal he had loosened remained stable. Han Mu believed he had recovered through medicine and rest. He did not know that every night Wuye had rebuilt another strand of his sword vein. The damaged youth was no longer crippled. He was simply unopened. Candidates entered in groups. Jinhai stepped onto the road first. Golden light erupted around him. Sword shadows bowed. The elders murmured in delight. Madame Luo smiled proudly. Born for the sword, someone whispered. Wuye nearly laughed. The sword bone recognized its true owner nearby. That was why it shone. Not for Jinhai, for him. Jinhai mistook rejection for worship. He climbed faster. Each step awakened more golden fire inside his spine. Each step burned another hidden crack into his meridians. His face remained radiant. His death moved closer. Han Mu entered the road. Wuye followed as his attendant. A disciple blocked him. Attendants do not participate. Wuye pointed at Han Mu, scared alone. Laughter spread again. The disciple prepared to throw him aside. An elderly examiner glanced over. He wore a gray robe and carried no sword. Yet every blade nearby leaned toward him. Let the fool enter, the old man said. The disciple bowed. Elder Mo, the formation may kill him. Then it will clean the road. More laughter. Wuye clapped. Elder Mo watched him for an extra moment. Wuye drooled down his chin. The old man looked away. The pressure fell. Candidates grunted. Some bent immediately. Han Mu trembled, dragging his feet and singing nonsense. In truth, he felt almost nothing. The Sword Heart Road judged fear, ambition, doubt. Wuye had buried fear when he was a child. He had sharpened ambition until it no longer shouted. He possessed no doubt. The formation found only emptiness. A grave without a corpse. Han Mu reached the middle section, his knees buckled. Wuye placed one hand against his back. A strand of burial sword intent entered his spine. Walk, Wuye whispered. Han Mu heard only madness in the tone, but his sealed veins opened slightly. Power flooded his arm. He took another step. Then another. Candidates began falling. A noble heir screamed and rolled down the stairs. A sect disciple vomited blood. Luosen passed Han Mu and sneered. Still alive, then the gray thread inside his leg tightened. His knee failed. He fell face first. His teeth struck stone. Blood splashed across the step. Wuye sat down nearby and laughed. Bird fell. Luosen turned with murder in his eyes. You. He tried to rise. The thread twisted again. Pain tore through his thigh. He screamed. Elders frowned. No one detected an attack. They assumed his foundation was unstable. Madame Luo looked ashamed. Jinhai did not turn back. He was too busy reaching the summit. Han Mu passed Luo. For the first time in his life, he passed someone considered talented. His expression changed. Hope Wuye saw it. Hope was dangerous. It could make a servant loyal. Wuye would shape it carefully. At the final section, sword intent descended like rain. Han Mu's robe tore. Thin cuts appeared across his skin. Wuye moved behind him. Every descending strand that threatened a fatal point vanished into grave silence. The sword remained wrapped. No one saw it feed. Han Mu reached the top. Silence spread across the plaza. A candidate from a minor escort clan had completed the road. Elder Mo looked interested. The other elders began whispering. Han Mu bowed, exhausted. Wuye crawled over the final step after him. Then he rolled onto his back and shouted at the sky. The stairs are angry. The tension broke. Everyone laughed. No one asked how the idiot had survived. That evening, Han Mu received an outer disciple badge. Wuye received permission to remain as his attendant. They were assigned a decaying hut near the lowest cultivation fields. Other successful candidates entered clean courtyards. Jinhai received a private residence beneath Golden Dawn Peak. Han Mu apologized. This place is terrible. Wuye chased a beetle across the floor. It has walls. Han Mu laughed. He did not realize Wuye was serious. Walls were enough. Wuye had built plans inside pigsties. A ruined hut beneath a mountain of swords was a palace. That night, Wuye began constructing his empire, not with banners, not with armies, with roots. He repaired the hut using wood taken from abandoned storage sheds. He carved formations beneath the floor. He buried dead sword fragments beneath each corner. He linked them to grave silence. The hut disappeared from spiritual perception. To outsiders, it remained broken and damp. Inside, the air became dense with refined sword essence. Han Mu woke feeling stronger. He assumed the mountain itself was miraculous. Wuye let him believe it. Next came resources. Outer disciples received little. A few spirit stones. Basic medicine. Access to common manuals. Wuye needed more. He entered the abandoned weapon yard after midnight. Thousands of failed swords lay in heaps. Cracked blades, warped hilts. Weapons rejected by disciples. To the pavilion they were trash. To him they were sleeping wealth. He placed one hand upon the nearest pile. The endless burial sword scripture opened. Rust lifted into the air. Broken sword spirits awoke. They did not scream. Grave silence swallowed the sound. Gray light flowed into Wuye's body. His cultivation surged. He compressed it again and again. Power folded inward until his aura remained that of an ordinary servant. The discarded weapons collapsed into harmless dust. Before dawn, he replaced them with other scraps so the missing weight would not be noticed. He repeated this every night. His strength climbed. His sword sense spread. His control deepened. Soon every weapon on the outer mountain whispered to him. He knew which disciple neglected maintenance, which elder hid a cracked blade, which treasure carried a sleeping curse. Knowledge accumulated faster than spirit stones. Wuye used both. He entered hidden markets beneath the pavilion through tunnels known to servants. He sold repair methods anonymously. He purchased ruined relics cheaply. He restored some, devoured others. He gathered poison. Maps, formation plates, contracts, secrets. His wealth multiplied in silence. Han Mu's progress accelerated with it. Wuye gave him a basic breathing method. He called it something found in the trash. In truth, it was a simplified fragment of the endless burial sword scripture. Safe, limited, powerful enough to reshape Han Mu's opened vein. The young man trained until his palms bled. Wuye watched without praise. Loyalty built through gifts was weak. Loyalty built through transformation endured longer. Within weeks, Han Mu defeated disciples who had mocked him. Within another stretch of time, he entered the upper ranks of the outer mountain. People began visiting the ruined hut. The first was a girl named Su Lian. She possessed a rare frost thread sword body and a reputation for arrogance. In reality, she was dying. Ice energy had spread into her heart. The pavilion physicians could slow it. They could not remove it. Wuye saw the problem immediately. A shard of an ancient sword spirit slept inside her chest. It fed on cold energy. Eventually, it would consume her life. She came seeking Han Mu's strange breathing method. She found Wuye sitting beneath the roof, feeding crumbs to crows. "You are the idiot." Wuye nodded happily. "You are the ice corpse." Her sword touched his throat. The air froze. "What did you say?" Wuye leaned forward until the blade cut his skin. "Little sword eats you." Su Lian's expression changed. No physician knew. No elder had spoken of a sword. Wuye tapped his chest. "Here." She followed him to the hut. By dawn, the ancient sword shard had been removed. Wuye devoured its dying spirit. Su Lian collapsed on the floor, breathing freely for the first time in years. When she asked who he truly was, Wuye poured water over his head and laughed. She understood. Not the truth, the rule, silence. She became the second root. The third was an elderly blacksmith expelled from the inner mountain. Master Ke had lost one hand and most of his reputation after refusing to forge a cursed weapon for an elder. Wuye restored his damaged forging flame. In exchange, the blacksmith began producing weapons from secret designs. The fourth was a formation servant beaten nearly to death for discovering missing funds. Wuye saved him and gave him the records proving which steward had stolen them. The steward vanished soon after. The servant became Wuye's eyes inside the mountain's formations. Others followed. A poison girl from the medicine fields. A mute assassin hiding among kitchen workers. A beast keeper who understood spirit creatures better than people. An accountant who remembered every bribe paid within the pavilion. Wuye did not call them disciples. He did not call them family. He called them useful. They called the ruined hut the silent court beneath it. Tunnels spread. Hidden chambers opened. Storerooms filled. Weapons appeared. Pills accumulated. Formations layered upon formations until the lowest outer mountain became a fortress no elder had noticed. Above ground, Wuye remained a fool. He danced in rain. He stole steamed buns. He argued with doors. When powerful disciples visited Hanmu or Sulian, Wuye swept dust into their shoes and was kicked aside. Each insult hid another observation. Each beating purchased another weakness. Meanwhile, Qin Jinhai rose like a false sun. He dominated trials. He received rare medicine. He entered the sunken sword pool before other candidates. The pavilion praised him as a future pillar. Madame Lua sent letters home describing his glory. The Qin family celebrated for days. Jinhai believed everything belonged to him. He did not know the stolen sword bone had begun cracking. He did not know golden fire was spreading into his organs. He did not know the sunken sword pool had awakened because Wuye stood beneath the mountain. Nor did he know that every sword spirit pretending to bow before him was actually waiting for its true master. The opening ceremony approached. Jinhai would enter the deepest pool and claim a divine sword before the assembled sects. The Qin family had invited nobles. Elders prepared musicians. The entire pavilion waited to watch heaven bless her son. Far below them, Wuye entered the heart of the silent court. Grave silence hovered above a circular formation. Hanmu stood at his right. Su Lian stood at his left. Master Ke and the others waited behind them. Weapons lined the walls. Spirit stones filled carved channels. A map of the Imperial Sword Pavilion spread across the floor. Every gate, every formation, every secret passage, every armory, every weakness, all of it belonged to him now. Hanmu lowered his head. The sunken sword pool opens tomorrow. Wuye touched the black blade. Yes, will you finally act? Wuye smiled. Above them, celebration bells began ringing for Qin Jinhai. No. Su Lian frowned. Then what are we waiting for? Wuye looked toward the ceiling, toward the false sun shining over the mountain, toward the brother wearing his bones. An empire is not revealed when it becomes strong. His smile sharpened. It is revealed when everyone else realizes they have nowhere left to run. Deep beneath Golden Dawn Peak, the sunken sword pool began to boil. Thousands of dead blades turned toward the silent court. The divine sword prepared for Qin Jinhai opened its eye, and inside the stolen sword bone, the first fatal crack reached his heart. The sunken sword pool opened beneath a sky without clouds. Golden bells rang across the Imperial Sword Pavilion. Sect envoys filled the observation terraces. Noble families occupied the highest seats. Outer disciples crowded the lower slopes, craning their necks for a glimpse of the ceremony. At the center of the mountain, a circular lake of molten light churned between pillars of black stone. Thousands of swords slept beneath its surface, broken, ancient, hungry. Qin Jinhai stood at the edge in ceremonial robes. Gold embroidered his sleeves. Jade crowned his hair. The stolen sword bone inside his spine burned brightly enough to paint his skin with radiance. Madame Lua watched from the honored platform. Her eyes shone with pride. "This is the day heaven returns everything our family deserves," she whispered. No one asked what had been stolen to obtain it. No one asked where her eldest son had died. A servant poured tea. She drank calmly. The mad child was gone. The useless stain had been erased. Her brilliant son would become immortal. Below the platform, Luosen limped among the Qin retainers. His injured leg had never recovered. Physicians found no wound. Medicine brought no relief. The pain only worsened whenever he circulated spiritual energy. He blamed Hanmu. He blamed bad luck. He blamed everyone except the fool who had licked cream from beneath his boot. Jinhai raised both hands. The crowd quieted. An elder of the pavilion stepped forward. Qin Jinhai possesses the Golden Sun sword bone. Today he enters the deepest chamber of the sunken sword pool. Should a divine weapon recognize him, the pavilion will accept him as a core successor. Applause thundered across the peaks. Jinhai bowed modestly. Inside, his heart swelled. He imagined the letters sent home. He imagined rivals kneeling. He imagined his name carved into the pavilion's central monument. He imagined the dead madman forgotten forever. The elder opened the formation. The molten lake split. Stone steps descended into blazing depths. Sword cries rose from below. Jinhai stepped forward. The first step burned his foot. He hid the pain. The second sent heat through his knee. He smiled. The third made the golden light inside his spine twist like a living thing. His breath caught. The crowd interpreted it as awe. Madame Luo clasped her hands. My son. Each step drew more power from the stolen bone. Each step widened the cracks inside it. Golden fire leaked into his veins. The sword bone recognized a presence beneath the mountain. Its true owner. It tried to tear itself free. Jinhai mistook the agony for awakening. He laughed. Light erupted around him. The terraces shook with cheers. Far below the ceremony, Qin Wuye stood inside the silent court. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Grave silence floated before him. Every sword on the mountain had begun to call, not loudly, not yet. Han Mu tightened his grip on his weapon. Su Lian's breath turned white. Master Qi stared at the map carved into the floor. The pool formation is breaking, the blacksmith said. Wuye nodded. It was never stable. Did you cause this? No. He smiled. I only stopped holding it together. Above them, Jinhai reached the final chamber. At its center stood a sword embedded in crystal. The blade blazed like condensed sunlight. Its hilt was wrapped in white dragon skin. The elders watching through the formation mirrors gasped. The radiant judgment sword, a weapon sealed for centuries. A weapon no candidate had ever approached. Jinhai's face trembled with joy. He reached for it. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, the sword screamed. The sound tore through the mountain. Candidates collapsed. Elders rose from their seats. Clouds split overhead. Jinhai laughed through the pain. It chose me. The sword screamed again, not in acceptance, in rage. Cracks spread through the crystal. Golden light surged backward into Jinhai's arm. His skin split. Blood sprayed across the chamber. He tried to release the hilt. His fingers would not move. The stolen sword bone locked him in place. Radiant judgment recognized its master's bone. It did not recognize the flesh surrounding it. The weapon pulled. Jinhai's spine inside his back. His scream echoed through the formation mirrors. Madame Luo stood. What is happening? The supervising elder raised one hand. Remain calm. Divine weapons often test their wielders. Then the lake exploded. Molten light erupted upward. Stone pillars shattered. The observation terraces shook. Swords burst from beneath the water in a storm of steel. Some flew into the sky. Some impaled disciples. Some turned on the elders maintaining the formation. Blood rained over the ceremony. Panic spread instantly. The first terrace collapsed. Nobles screamed. Cultivators shoved one another toward the exits. A blade pierced a clan master through the mouth. Another cut an envoy in half. The pavilion's defensive formation flickered. Then darkness rolled from the depths of the pool. Not smoke, not mist. A burial aura. Ancient sword spirits rose from the lake wearing fragments of armor and faces carved from rust. They had been trapped for generations, fed with failed candidates, suppressed beneath sacred seals. Now the seals were broken. The largest spirit climbed from the central chamber. Its body was built from thousands of shattered blades. A crown of broken hilts circled its skull. Its hollow chest contained a pulsing red core. The elders recognized it. Their faces turned white. The sword grave sovereign, a name forbidden in pavilion records. A monster created when the founding elders buried an entire enemy sect beneath the mountain. The pavilion had built its glory over a mass grave. Now the grave had awakened. The swordgrave sovereign raised one hand. Every blade in the outer mountains turned, then they fell. The first wave struck the cultivation fields. Buildings vanished. Disciples became red mist. The second wave shattered the medicine valleys. Spirit beasts tore free from their cages and trampled their keepers. The third wave descended upon the main gate. Candidates who had mocked the weak screamed while crawling beneath overturned carriages. The proud heirs abandoned servants. The servants dragged nobles from hiding places to steal their protective treasures. Friendships broke. Promises vanished. Human beings became animals with cleaner robes. Luosen pushed through the crowd. Protect me, I am of the Qin family. A retainer grabbed his arm. Luosen stabbed him in the stomach and stole his shield. The dying man stared in disbelief. Luosen did not look back. Madame Luo fled the honored platform with Jinhai's attendant. A falling sword cut one woman down. Madame Luo stepped over the body. Another servant begged for help. She kicked him toward the approaching sword spirits to slow them. Her white fox cloak became spotted with blood. She clutched it, closed it, and continued running. Below the shattered lake, Jinhai remained trapped. Radiant judgment pulled harder. The stolen bone began emerging from his back. Golden fragments tore through flesh. He screamed for his mother. He screamed for the elders. He screamed for anyone. No one came. The divine weapon showed him images. A poisoned child, a surgical chamber, a spine opened by family physicians, a mother watching without emotion, a younger brother waiting beside a basin of blood. Jinhai shook his head. No. The images continued. The sword bone being removed, placed inside him, bound with stolen blood, suppressed with poison. He had always known part of the truth. He had chosen not to ask the rest. Now the bone remembered everything. It burned with hatred that did not belong to him. Jinhai wept. I am its owner, Radiant Judgment answered by tearing another golden fragment from his spine. Above, the Swordgrave Sovereign struck the main peak. The barrier shattered. Pavilion elders attacked together, fire, lightning. Frost sword light covered the sky. For one breath, the mountain became bright as dawn. Then the sovereign opened its hollow mouth. Every attack vanished inside it. The red core in its chest swelled. A beam of compressed sword death erupted. 3 elders disappeared, their weapons fell empty. The surviving masters retreated. Outer disciples watched their gods run. Despair settled faster than blood. Han Mu stood inside the silent court as the mountain died above him. The hidden fortress did not shake. Its formations absorbed the pressure. The refugees Wuye had gathered waited in silence. The poison girl prepared medicine. The mute assassin checked hidden doors. The accountant guarded the resource chambers. Every route held. Every plan functioned. Su Lian looked toward Wuye. I knew something would happen. You let them hold the ceremony, yes. Han Mu's jaw tightened. People are dying. Wuye looked at him. The room became colder. They were dying before today. Han Mu said nothing. Wuye walked toward the exit. Now the people responsible are simply close enough to hear it. The doors of the silent court opened. Burial aura poured through the tunnels. Wuye climbed toward the surface. Han Mu and Su Lian followed. Behind them came those who had chosen the ruined hut over the shining peaks. They emerged into chaos. The outer mountain burned. Disciples ran through smoke. Sword spirits hunted them between broken halls. A group of injured children huddled beneath a collapsed gate. Han Mu moved to help. Wuye did not stop him. Su Lian froze the approaching spirits. Master Qi led the children toward the silent court. Wuye continued walking. He did not save everyone. He saved what belonged to him. The distinction was simple. At the central plaza, the Swordgrave Sovereign raised both hands. Thousands of blades gathered above it. The remaining elders formed a desperate barrier. Madame Luo crawled behind them. Her hair had come loose. Blood covered her face. Luo Sen lay nearby, sobbing over his useless leg. The proud heirs crowded together, begging the elders not to abandon them. One of the elders turned. Give us your protective treasures. All of them. The heirs hesitated. The elder killed the nearest one and took his storage ring. After that, everyone obeyed. The barrier thickened. The sovereign lowered its arms. The sword storm fell. The barrier broke instantly. Then silence swallowed the plaza. Every falling blade stopped. Not slowed. Stopped, their points hung a finger's width from flesh. The Swordgrave Sovereign turned its crown. A lone man walked through the smoke. Torn servant bell at his waist. A black sword in one hand. Wuye. Luo Sen recognized the face first. His mouth opened. No. Madame Luo stared. Her body began to tremble. The dead son walked toward her. Not crawling, not laughing, not mad. Qin Wuye passed beneath the frozen sword storm. Every blade turned toward him. Then lowered, the watching crowd forgot, breathe. The Swordgrave Sovereign roared. Wuye looked up. The roar vanished into grave silence. He drew the sword. No light appeared. No thunder answered. No grand aura shook the sky. He made one cut. A simple horizontal line. The world became still. The Swordgrave Sovereign froze. A black seam appeared across its chest. The red core split. The mountain-sized body separated into 2 halves. Thousands of broken blades collapsed into ash. The storm above the plaza dissolved. The clouds opened. Sunlight returned. No one cheered. They were too afraid. Wuye stood among the falling ash. His sword remained clean. The surviving elders stared at him as though staring at the end of their sect. Han Mu and Su Lian emerged behind him. Then Master Ke, then the silent court. Dozens became hundreds as hidden followers stepped from tunnels and ruined halls. Weapons ready. Formations active, resources untouched. While the pavilion collapsed, an empire rose from beneath it. Madame Luo crawled backward. Her lips shook. Wuye? He turned toward her. The vacant grin of the madman was gone. Only calm remained. Luo Sen began dragging himself away. Wuye looked at his ruined leg. The gray thread tightened. Bones shattered, Luo Sen screamed. Wuye continued walking. The crowd parted. People who had laughed at him pressed their faces into the ground. Elders lowered, candidates trembled. One disciple whispered, "That is the fool." Another answered through chattering teeth, "No." Wuye stepped over the broken barrier. That was the Sword Immortal's. Jinhai's final scream rose from the pool. Wuye heard it. So did Madame Luo. Her face collapsed. "My son." Wuye smiled. "Yes." He looked toward the shattered depths. "Your son is waiting." The shattered mountain fell silent. Not peaceful. Never peaceful. Silence after slaughter was merely fear holding its breath. Qin Wuye stood at the edge of the ruined sunken sword pool while ash drifted around him like black snow. Below, something screamed. The sound came from deep beneath broken stone. Wet. Hoarse. Human. Madame Luo threw herself forward. "My son," she tried to pass Wuye. Grave silence moved before she took a second step. The black blade touched her throat. No light, no pressure. Yet her knees failed instantly. She collapsed onto the blood-covered ground. Wuye looked down at her. For 18 years he had imagined this moment. Not with excitement, not with warmth. He had examined it like a craftsman examining an unfinished weapon. Where should the edge fall? How much pain was enough? What words would break her fastest? Now that she knelt before him, he felt nothing. That emptiness pleased him more than hatred ever could. Madame Luo stared up. Her lips trembled. Wuye said nothing. "You are truly alive." She reached toward his robe. He stepped back. Her hand closed around heir. The movement seemed to wound her more than a blade. "My child," she whispered. The crowd lowered their heads. Some pretended not to hear. Others listened greedily. The woman who had arrived wrapped in fox fur now knelt in torn robes streaked with soot and blood. Her hair hung loose, her face had lost its noble calm. She looked old, small, ordinary. Wuye remembered her, standing beside his bed when he was 6. He remembered the bowl in her hands. He remembered her thumb brushing his lips after the poison entered his mouth. He remembered her whisper, "Drink, mother is here." Madame Luo crawled closer. "I thought you were dead. You arranged it." Her face froze. A shiver moved through the crowd. Wuye's voice was quiet. It carried farther than shouting. Madame Luo shook her head quickly. "No, Wuye. You misunderstand. I never wanted your death." He watched her. She began to cry. Tears came easily to her. They always had. "When you were born, I held you first. I sang to you. I did not sleep for nights because I feared you would stop breathing. You were my first child." Wuye tilted his head. The old madness returned for one breath. A small, crooked movement. Madame Luo saw it. Hope flickered in her eyes. She thought the fool remained somewhere inside. She thought blood could still be used as a chain. Then Wuye smiled. "You said that before the poison," he continued. "You told the physician to increase the dose." Her face turned white. "You watched them open my back. I was forced. You held my shoulders. Your father ordered it. You wiped my blood from Jinhai's new bone. I had no choice." Wuye crouched. Now their faces were level. His voice softened. "You simply preferred the one that hurt me." Madame Luo's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Wuye stood. The black sword left her throat. She gasped with relief. Then he pointed toward the broken pool. "Go." She stared at him. "My son is below." "Yes." "You will save him?" "No." The answer struck harder than any blow. Madame Luo's body folded. She pressed both hands to the ground. "Please." The word spread through the plaza. Servants who had once bowed to her now watched her beg. Disciples she had ignored watched her crawl. The remaining elders remained silent. They understood the balance of power. No one would defend her. No one would risk Wuye's attention. Madame Luo pressed her forehead into the ash. "Please save your brother." "My brother died when he accepted my bones. He was a child. So was I." He did not understand. He understood enough to smile. Madame Luo raised her head. Desperation twisted her face. "You are stronger now. You have everything. Why continue this? A great man should forgive." The plaza became colder. Wuye looked at the surviving elders. Then at the heirs who had laughed while Luo Sen crushed food beneath his boot. Then at the disciples who had kicked him aside because they believed he could not retaliate. Wuye turned back to his mother. "I am not a great man." His smile was almost gentle. "I am the consequence." A cracking sound came from the pool. Stones shifted. A hand appeared beneath the rubble. Burned skin clung to exposed bone. Qin Jinhai dragged himself upward. The proud heir no longer shone. His ceremonial robes had burned away. His golden hair crown was gone. The stolen sword bone protruded from his back in broken fragments. Radiant judgment followed behind him, dragging through the stone like an executioner, refusing to release its prisoner. Jinhai reached the plaza. He saw Wuye. He stopped crawling. For a moment, neither brother spoke. The crowd stared at them. One dressed like a ruined servant and stood above everyone. The other had been dressed like heaven's chosen son and now crawled naked through blood. Jinhai's mouth moved. Brother. Wuye looked at him without recognition. Jinhai began trembling. Brother, help me. Wuye remembered another voice. A younger voice. Bright with amusement. Mad brother, bark for me. Jinhai dragged himself forward. His fingernails tore against the stone. We share blood. Wuye remembered him watching from behind a door while poison burned through a child's body. We grew up together. Wuye remembered waking alone in a pigsty after a winter beating. You protected me when we were young. Wuye remembered standing between Jinhai and an angry horse before either of them understood betrayal. Jinhai sobbed. I was foolish, no. Wuye's tone remained calm. You were comfortable. Jinhai stopped. Wuye stepped closer. You never mistook wrong for right. He lowered his gaze to the bone protruding from Jinhai's back. You simply believed wrong would never cost you anything. Jinhai's eyes filled with terror. Radiant judgment pulled. Another golden fragment tore free. He screamed. Madame Luo crawled toward him. My son! She wrapped her arms around Jinhai. He struck her, weakly, desperately. Get away from me! She recoiled. Jinhai looked at her with hatred. You said it would be mine. I only wanted you to live. You wanted me to surpass him. I did everything for you. You put his bone inside me. The crowd listened. Every secret became public. Every noble lie rotted on Luo's robe. You knew it would reject me, no. You knew I did not. You knew. He struck her again. This time blood ran from her mouth. She did not resist. Jinhai with joy. With collapse. The same family that had called Wuye mad now watched its chosen son lose his mind. Jinhai turned toward Wuye. Take it back. Wuye said nothing. Take the bone. No. Jinhai's face twisted. What do you want? Wuye looked around the plaza. The Qin retainers had begun kneeling. One after another. Beaten him women who had withheld food. Cousins who had thrown stones. Servants who had repeated cruel orders eagerly because the victim could not fight back. They lowered their heads now. An old steward crawled forward. Young master, we were only obeying the family. Wuye recognized him. The man had locked the pigsty during a snowstorm. Wuye had survived by cutting open a dead animal and sleeping inside its body. The steward pressed his forehead into the ground. Please remember our years of service. Wuye smiled. I remember. Only slightly. That was enough. Wuye lifted one finger. A broken sword rose from the ashes. It pierced the steward's chest. The man stared at the blade, then at Wuye. I remember. The sword twisted. The steward collapsed. Panic spread among the kneeling retainers. Some tried to run. The silent court closed every path. Han Mu stood at the eastern gate. Su Lian stood at the west. Master Ke and the others sealed the remaining exits. No one escaped. Luosen dragged his broken body backward. Wei looked at him. The gray thread inside Luosen's veins awakened fully. His legs split from within. He screamed and clawed at the ground. Wei walked over. Luosen raised both hands. I was joking. Wei stopped. The kicks? I was young. The winter well? Luosen's face emptied. He remembered. Years ago, he and several cousins had thrown Wuye into a frozen well. They had listened to him scream. Then they had covered the opening and gone to dinner. Wuye had climbed out before dawn using broken fingernails and teeth. Luosen began sobbing. I forgot. Wuye looked down at him. I did not. The gray thread tightened around Luosen's core. His cultivations, every vein burst. Pain bent his body into a crooked shape. He did not die. Not yet. Wuye walked away while Luosen begged strangers to kill him. No one moved. The Qin retainers began accusing one another. He gave the order. She carried the poison. The steward locked the door. The physicians cut him. Madame Luo paid them. Jinhai knew. Voices rose. Hands pointed. The same people who had united to torment a helpless child now tore each other apart for one more breath of life. A guard stabbed a cousin. A maid dragged another servant before Wuye and listed every cruelty the woman had committed. One physician offered documents. Another offered hidden gold. A family elder promised the Qin treasury. Wuye listened. Then he ordered the silent court to open the Qin storage seals. The accountant bowed. It is already done. Gasps spread through the crowd. Wuye had taken everything before revealing himself. The family's wealth, its records, its secret contract, its hidden crimes, its escape routes. The Qin clan had not merely lost power. It had ceased to exist before understanding it was under attack. An elderly Qin uncle raised his head. You cannot kill all of us. Wuye considered him, then smiled. Why? The uncle stared. Wuye spread one hand toward the ruined mountain. What has your bloodline produced? No one, a poisoned child. His gaze moved to Madame Luo, a stolen body. His gaze moved to Jinhai, a nest of cowards. His gaze moved across the retainers, a family so proud of its name that none of you learned to become human without it. The uncle's face hardened. For a moment, airing that same blood. Wuye drew gruff same silence. No, one cut. The uncle's head fell. Wuye sheathed the sword. I carry the scar. Madame Luo cradled Jinhai while he convulsed. Golden fire leaked from his mouth. His skin had begun turning transparent around the stolen fragments. She looked toward Wuye one final time. Tell me what to do. He paused. She saw the pause and crawled toward him. I will do anything. Anything? Yes. Then watch. Her hope pulled again. The final fragment of the golden sun sword bone tore from Jinhai's spine. His body collapsed. The fragment floated in the air, golden, pure, still carrying the memory of the child from whom it had been stolen. It moved toward Wuye. The crowd expected him to reclaim it. He raised grave silence. Madame Luo screamed. The golden sun sword bone shattered into light. The light entered grave silence. The stolen talent vanished forever. Jinhai stared at the empty air. His identity had been built upon that bone. Without it, there was nothing left. No heavenly talent. No future immortal. Only a dying man who had spent his life wearing his brother's wound. He reached for Wuye. Why? Wuye looked at him. Yunhai coughed blood. Yes, so I made sure neither of us would have it. The answer broke him. He began to laugh and cry together. Madame Luo pressed her face against his chest. Wuye turned away. Behind him, Jinhai whispered, Brother. Wuye stopped. Were you ever truly mad? The plaza waited. Wuye looked toward the horizon. For 18 years. Jinhai's eyes widened. Wuye continued. I believed one of you might regret it. Then he walked away. Jinhai died before sunset. Madame Luo remained beside the body through the night. No one brought her food. No one brought water. The servants she had sacrificed passed her without looking. The allies she had purchased denied knowing her name. By morning, she was still whispering lullabies to a corpse. By the following night, the cold entered her bones. She called for Wuye until her voice disappeared. He never returned. The remaining Qin family members were taken beneath the silent court. Some were executed. Some were placed in the same northern mines where they had intended to bury him. They received no titles. No guards, no medicine, only tools. Luo Sen survived longest, not through strength, through punishment. His broken cultivation left him unable to die quickly. Every winter reopened old injuries. Every night he dreamed of a fool licking cream from stone. He begged for death. The mines gave him work. Years later, workers found him frozen beside a wall, his fingernails worn away from trying to climb through solid rock. The Imperial Sword Pavilion did not recover. Its surviving elders surrendered their seals. The outer mountains became territory of the Silent Court. The medicine valleys reopened. The weapon yards burned for 7 days. The hidden burial chambers were emptied. No disciple was forced to kneel before a clan name again. Not because Wuye valued fairness, because loyalty built through humiliation was unreliable. Han Mu became the first sword commander. Su Lian governed the frost halls. Master Qi forged weapons that made neighboring sects close their gates at night. The abandoned hut remained untouched. Wuye refused every request to replace it. Beneath its broken roof stood the first throne of the silent court. Plain wood. No gold, no sacred carvings. Grave silence rested beside it. One evening, Wuye sat there with a cup of red wine. The mountain below was calm. Messengers waited outside with tribute from Jinhai. Han Mu entered and placed a sealed report on the table. The final Qin mine is closed. Wuye drank. No survivors? None. Han Mu hesitated. Do you feel satisfied? Wuye looked at the wine. Its surface reflected his face. Not the madman, not the poisoned child, not the sword immortal worshipped by thousands. Only a man who had waited long enough. Satisfaction is for those who expected the world to repay them. He set the cup down. I expected nothing. Outside, countless swords bowed toward the hut as night covered the peaks. Wuye leaned back on the plain wooden throne. His family had believed blood made them untouchable. They had believed weakness made him harmless. They had believed 18 years of silence meant 18 years without memory. They had been wrong about everything. His final smile was thin, cold, almost amused. People call it karma when the blade finally reaches their neck. Grave silence hummed beside him. I call it poor timing.